Welcome to Flipped Classroom. Today's lesson is on literary theory and criticism. Part 1 will be about new criticism theory. What is the primary function of literature? There are two trains of thought. One is that the function of literature is to be extrinsic, meaning it's supposed to be moral, possibly teach a lesson. Or is it to be intrinsic? Is literature to be entertaining and fun, something for people to enjoy? Literary theory assumes that there's no such thing as an innocent reading of a text. Whether our responses are emotional and spontaneous, or even well-reasoned and highly structured, all such interactions with text are based on some underlying factors. And these underlying factors cause us to respond to the text in a very particular way. What elicits these responses, or in other words, how a reader makes sense of the text, is at the heart of literary theory. The basic questions from literary critics are either philosophical, psychological, functional, and often descriptive nature of a text. These are some of the basic questions from the literary critics. Does the text have one correct meaning? Is a text always didactic? Meaning, must the reader always learn something? Does the text affect each reader in the same way? How is the text influenced by culture of its author and the culture in which it was written? And can a text become a catalyst for change in a given culture? There are a variety of schools of literary criticism, and these are the 9 main ones that we'll be going over in class. New criticism, reader response criticism, structuralism, deconstruction, psychoanalytical criticism, feminism, Marxism, new historicism, cultural studies, and that's divided into post-colonialism and ethical criticism. One of the most commonly used approaches to literary criticism is new criticism, which was the dominant theory between 1940s and 1980s, and is still commonly used in high school classes and introduction to literature classes. This approach to finding the overall meaning of a text depends solely on the actual text. No library research is required, no need to study the author's life or the time it was composed in. It's a very objective approach based on the notion that there's a formula to knowing the meaning of a text. What makes new criticism different from other literary theories? Well, first, it emphasizes explication, or a close reading of the text. It rejects old historicism's attention to biographical and sociological matters. The text is intrinsic. It should not be confused with the author's intentions. And how a text works can be found through close focus and analysis, rather than researching outside factors. Another key element is the concept of the affective fallacy. This is the erroneous practice of interpreting text according to the psychological or emotional responses of readers, confusing the text with its results. When using the new criticism approach, here are typical elements you would look at for analysis. What is the title's relationship to the text? What are some of the connotation and denotations of key words? And what are the relationships and patterns among these words? Also, with a close reading, you'd be looking at allusions, symbols, images, and figures of speech. For a poem, you definitely look at the prosody, for example, the meter, the rhyme, and the stanzas. Tone and mood, as well as point of view, are also very important, as well as looking at paradoxes and ironies that can be found within the text. For more information on new criticism, here are 2 sources that are excellent for further research. Thank you for joining me today in Flip